Skip says he wanted to start growing clams to avoid getting a real job, and he grew clams for about 5 years. And right as his clams were coming to market, they all died. They died of an unknown parasite, the first of its kind that was ever seen in Massachusetts. So basically, out of desperation, Skip sought out some people that he had befriended up in Maine who had some oyster seed that they were looking to get rid of. And he took the oyster seed from Maine, planted it in Duxbury, and it worked, and it worked pretty well. It took a number of years to get going, but as it's evolved, today there are 16 farmers who farm on about 50 acres in Duxbury, and we work with high-end chefs all around the country. One of our chefs is here and now in our profession. I don't know if that's good or bad. Here you are. So Island Creek Oysters, as I mentioned, works with high-end chefs all around the country. We produce about 5 million oysters a year, and as it relates to eating local, what's very cool about oysters is that oysters are a lot like wine. I don't know how much people know about oysters, but the term terroir that applies to wine, sort of the earth and kind of the culture of the farmers that grow wine, applies directly to oysters. And what I mean by that is the characteristics of Duxbury Bay are unique. The salinity, parts per thousand, the temperature of the water, the nutrients that the oysters feed on, how the farmers choose to grow them. And so the oysters that we grow at Island Creek are completely unique and can't be replicated anywhere else. So an oyster that's grown in Duxbury versus an oyster that's grown in Kingston, or an oyster that's grown in Wellfleet or up in Maine, they all taste very different, which is amazing. And so, as it relates to, again, to eating local, there are so many different varieties of oysters that are grown right in this area. Massachusetts is known around the country for producing some of the best oysters. And it's interesting to note that the species of oyster that's grown on the east coast of the U.S. is all the same species, Chrysostea virginica. But again, it's these unique characteristics of the places that they're grown and the way that they're grown that give them their unique characteristics. As Island Creek has evolved, we've started to work with other farmers around the area. We're involved with the guys in Kingston that are starting to get their program off the ground, which is really, really exciting. Because one of the core values at Island Creek, because we were started by a group of farmers, is making sure that in the distribution process, farmers are represented basically to the fullest extent. So we have aligned ourselves with a number of farmers and basically have eliminated all the steps of the distribution chain, and now work directly with chefs all across the country and with consumers as well. If you think about the traditional structure of how seafood has been distributed, and Adam and Larry are working on this directly with lobsters. The traditional model was fishermen would come to a fish house and drop off their catch, and the fish house would largely determine what the price was and how much they were going to be able to buy on that given day. And at Island Creek, we've strived to create relationships with our chefs and some of our distributors in other cities to create a relationship where we can go to bat and get the best price for our farmers, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are doing all of the work, and they should be reaping as much benefit as anybody else, certainly more than the person that's distributing the oyster. And this model really it's working well. Our farmers are really happy. All of us are really happy. The other farmers that we're working with around the state are also benefiting from this. And another thing as it relates to local in this specific area is that oysters are really, really good for the environment. A lot of times when we talk about aquaculture, people think about fish farming, and they have those sort of horrible visions of salmon farming and antibiotics and food that's put into the system to grow fish. Well, oysters feed on basically the naturally occurring elements in the environment. They filter plankton, and they filter largely excess nitrogen. And for an ecosystem like Duxbury's or Kingston, where there's a lot of runoff from people fertilizing their lawns, golf courses, excess nitrogen can lead to excessive algal blooms, which shades out the plant life, which prevents the growth of eelgrass and and so on and so forth. And an adult oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. And so that's an amazingly efficient cleaner of the bay. And with the oysters that we have grown in Duxbury, we're able to clean the entire bay every 9 days, which is really, really amazing. And as we've grown, it's been about 10 years now since there's been a sizable oyster operation in Duxbury. There have been noticeable signs within the local populations of shellfish and finfish really returning in mass to Duxbury Bay, which is really, really exciting. And Sia was talking about Rowan's book. Rowan is, I think, a great writer. He's done wonders for the oyster industry with his book, A Geography of Oysters. And it's a great read if you're interested in oysters. Restoration is one of the biggest things that people are turning to now, or oyster restorations, to clean up dirty water. And we're really proud, Island Creek is really proud to be involved with a number of these restoration projects, and we donate several 100,000 oysters every year up to the Massachusetts Oyster Project, and have planted oysters at the mouth of the Charles River in an attempt to start to clean up Boston Harbor. And so far so good, the oysters are surviving. And obviously this is just one small step in a far greater project, but I think that with this movement towards eating local, you know, it's just an amazing thing to be in a room like this where people are interested in where their food's coming from, and Island Creek and everybody at this table to be a part of that process is really amazing. And so I can't encourage everybody enough to seek you know, people out at their local farmers markets that are, you know, selling their shellfish or finfish or lobsters. You know, it's people that really, really work hard to bring you the best products, and there really isn't a better way to get it than, you know, out of the back of a Volmar in one of their trucks. And so that's it for me on Island Creek, and I'm happy to answer questions towards the end. But again, just want to say thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you.